Guten Morgen, welcome to Creative Mornings in August. First I want to give a short introduction about Creative Mornings, what it is, what we're doing. So Creative Mornings is an international brand which is active in 190 cities around the globe. The headquarters is in New York and it got founded 2008 in New York from a Swiss graphic designer who wanted to have a regular event in order for people to meet and greet. First of all, I want to thank you, Navis, for having us here, for providing the breakfast and this wonderful location. And that's the point where you probably have asked yourself, what's this funny robot out there? So they're going to give you a little introduction, short introduction, what they're doing. Welcome.
Thanks, Christina, for the introduction. What the basic idea of Navis is that Navis creates maps and GPS for indoors. You might wonder why you want to have maps and GPS for indoors. Looking at the technology, give you a short introduction, then about design and engineering, and then a rough thing on service design. So, navigation outdoors is known to everybody. It is implemented in many applications, but if you come indoors, your GPS signal is gone and navigation indoors looks usually like this. So, facing the problem that there's no GPS inside, we need a device that captures first the building and creates a map. These maps are captured by the robot or by our trolley. Look like this. They are multi-dimensional maps, so we have 3D information of the building, we have panorama pictures, but also additional information like Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and magnetic field. Built upon that, we have a web software, you name it the Indoor Viewer, where you can then manage the buildings, so different stories, different your different buildings, align them, build complete campuses like the university or airport, and further on, then you can display and show it off through the internet. The last technology column which we have is the navigation app. This navigation app uses the information from our maps that we created and then gives you a position through your smartphone camera. As we know, how the building looks like from every perspective, your smartphone camera can just match the picture it took and then give you the position. Once you know where you are, then it's easy to route. So we started with the idea to navigate through buildings. We needed a map, we needed a software to edit the map, and we built the robot. Now I'll give you just a short run through what our design and engineering team does. We start from the conception, we think about how our trolley could look like. Then we do the model making, we do prototyping. Prototyping means for us like building the things. We have electrical engineers, mechanical engineers working on it together until the final technical drawing is ready. Then we we work closely together with the manufacturer to build this high precision tool. We have the final assembly in-house, and then the last step is to get every trolley calibrated so it creates a perfect map. Now my colleague Vivian gives you a short outlook on service design.
Thanks. Thank you. Yes, my name is Vivian. I started 5 months ago as a service designer at Navis. And when I started, I heard about customer focus from our founders, from other colleagues. And customer focus for us means that we orientate Navis toward serving our customers' needs. And that we also include like a effective relationship and like effective customer service and support for them. It was a process. It evolved in the past years. So Navis is existing since 4 years. And first we started, or my colleagues started, with observing the behavior of the customers after the product was sent out. And then we started to kind of elicit direct feedback from them via surveys or talking with them in person. And then we said, okay, we need really a proper way on to see how our customers are doing, how to get feedback. And so we set up like a quarterly catch-up where our account managers and our technical account managers sit together with them and go through their needs, how their success is going, and these things. And then we evolved a step further and we said, okay, we really need to do personas. It's now in the mind of the people, what our customers think, what they need, but we really have to define it somewhere, we have to write it down, and we have to share it via the whole Navis. So this is why we established personas for our customer groups. And right now we're in this process where we want our customers to really involve them in the development process from the very beginning. And also another tool that we used to find out what our customers need is having a customer journey. You can also have a look at it later on in this room where the muesli is. And here's an example of one of our personas. So this is a guy that is using Navis to develop. He's not using all the Navis products as Andy showed them before, but he's using one of this product and is developing a solution for his end customers on top of that. And what we also have is a digital service. We call it our portal. And this portal, we found out, okay, we thought it's great, now our customers can use it. But we found out that a lot of things are missing, and right now we're in the process of evolving this further, of developing it further, and conducting interviews for that. We will do usability tests on that, so that in the end, really each customer has like a portal that fits his needs. And what I said before, this phase that we are in right now, in the step of involving the customers, these are 3 examples on how we want to do it. First is doing usability tests with them. The second is like really in-depth interviews. And the third thing is surveys.
We are happy if you have questions later on. Max, my colleague in the back waving his hand, is glad to show you a demo version of our navigation app, or if you have questions later on, you can just ask everybody with a Navis shirt if you want to have more information or if you look for a new job.
Thank you, Navis. So we have also from Creative Mornings side, we have also a few other sponsors. So the muesli, as you have heard before, next to the customer journey, please try it. It's really tasteful. We also usually have a Tranquini, which makes you positively relaxed. And I want to say a big thank you to the team who's making the Creative Mornings team who's making every event possible here. If you take photos today, please use this hashtag, support the event on social media, on Instagram, whatever. You will also find posters everywhere if you forget the hashtags after I kill the slide here. And our topic for August is Genius. It has been sponsored by Creative Mornings and WordPress. And that's also the point where I want to introduce our speaker, Glaser, who will talk about how VR is getting integrated in options, how VR can be integrated into education in schools. Welcome.
Cool. Thanks. Hey guys, before we start, it's early in the morning, I would like you to have a little exercise with me. Can you please stand up? And just follow my instructions. Maybe I will go here so you can follow me. Okay, please Gently start rotating your hips to the left, like 4, 5, 6 times. Then to the other side, 5 times. You're doing very good. I see you in the back, you're doing it pretty nice. Then we gently lift our arms. Slowly, up, 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 up. Nice. Ooh, there's a tall guy back in there. Then we gently move to the right and drop our. Oh, okay, correct. and drop our arms slowly on the shoulders of our guy up in front, and give this person a nice massage, please. Yeah, when the camera guy gets a massage, it's all good. Okay, then we put this whole thing back, and if we return to the right, we can give our favorite back. How does it feel? Soft, nice, good. Thank you very much. You're welcome. So, good that we got this whole thing started. We are warmed up now. And now I need your attention, please. So, I'm going to talk about making VR in schools and beyond. Designing product to push the 21st century learning skills. I'm Thomas, I'm head of UX. I'm obviously excited about VR. I'm leading a team, a very talented team at CoSpaces, yeah, VR and education is one of my key topics. And I will tell you a little bit more about CoSpaces as well as design challenges we are facing when we design for the product. So, to start the whole thing, actually, what is VR good for? Who of you guys had experience with VR? Hands up. Okay, okay. Who of you had experience with a HTC Vive or something like this, a high-end VR? Okay. And who owns any Google Cardboard or any HMD? Okay, nice. Okay, good. Still, some people to be convinced to look at VR. So where does VR make sense? If you listen to the media, there are different kinds of ideas about VR used in games. You see VR games a lot, but also use cases for traveling or education and training, where they always say that this is going to be a big factor. So what is VR in education then? We already have some nice apps out there, for example, Google Expeditions or History View. In Google Expeditions, you can make virtual field trips with your class. You can go to different kinds of historic sites and visit them together with your class, and then the teacher is kind of guiding the class through ancient Rome or something like this. There's also a nice and handy map for it, where all the kind of VR, AR companies for education are listed. So you can have a look here. There was recently an article on vrscout.com. We are featured here, by the way. So all the tools, basically, or most of the tools, are still about consuming VR. There's content like 360 videos or small games, all these virtual field trips, for example, where you can dive into. But there's no current good solution how you can create VR yourself, how you can be a maker. So this is why we developed CoSpaces EDU. So CoSpaces is a creative multi-platform tool which enables students to build their own VR on their iPad or on their desktop, mostly Chromebooks in the US, for example, and build little stories, worlds, games, and put all their content here, like exhibitions or virtual presentations. And then they can later explore it with their smartphone and show it to their classmates and get feedback, and that's pretty much it. So it's currently the easiest way how to can create your own virtual spaces. How does it look like? So this is a screen recording of our desktop. So this is how the dashboard of CoSpaces looks like. You have all your different kinds of spaces. Then if you click create a space, that's basically it. That's the editor. You have a 3D stage, you have a camera, you have the different kinds of environments you can pick, for example, a desert, where you can also change the lighting settings a bit. So we offer you a library of 3D assets. For example, you can take a rocket. Soon you will also be able to upload your own 3D assets, by the way. So you can scale it, lift it, rotate it, all the kind of basic 3D interactions. And if you press play, you will enter the play mode, which means you can then walk around the 3D stage and explore it. To make this whole thing more interactive and more fun to use, there's a code panel where you can whether use JavaScript or Blockly, a visual programming language, where you can, for example, take a block like move block or different kinds of actions. This example, for example, we use the move block, select the rocket, say 100 meters up in 10 seconds. Then we can select one of the events like on activate, which means if I press play now, I can look around, move forward, and then this thing has a click event. If I click on it, the rocket moves up. It's easy as that. And you have the iPhone or Android app on your smartphone installed. You log in with your account. It's all in the cloud. You see that there was the rocket again. You put it into one of your mobile headsets, like this is a Homido Grab. And then you see it, and you can dive into the thing, walk around, look at the rocket, and if you press, then the rocket goes up. So this was this took me like 2 minutes in order to make this very simple example. So you get an idea of what's the core of CoSpaces EDU creation. So how is this being used in schools? We see lots of kids using it, especially in the States, in Canada and in Asia. We have 12,000 new signups a month currently. It's used all across the subjects, from history class, arts class, then from elementary school till middle school till high school level. And all the video examples, what you see here, are on our Twitter moments from CoSpaces. That's the nice thing about teachers. When they are excited about a product, they share it. So they make videos, how it's used in a classroom, and share it with others. And we can also show you then how it feels and how it looks like when you use CoSpaces in your classroom. What kind of examples you can create here? You can use it, for example, for a literature class, where you read a book and afterwards you map out the key scenes of the book in 3D and explore it and share it with your classmates or the parents. So this was done by a 4th grade elementary school in Illinois. You can also use it for language learning. So 8th grade middle school in Oregon, they put all images from the web there. You can upload your own images. You can also, we have also a Giphy integration for animated GIFs, and you can put them all out there and then write down what pizza, for example, is called in, I think it's La Pizza Los, it's Spanish, okay. So this is one example how it works for language learning. They also use it for social studies. For example, there was in New Jersey a presentation about climate change, how it affects our world, and then they map out some solutions and some problems there in a 3D space, and then they present it in VR. Or in South Africa, a school, they thought about how could a eco-city of the future look like. So they mapped out like solar power stations, rainwater collection, and this kind of stuff, solar panels on houses and things. And then they also presented it. You can use it for history class. You can create virtual exhibitions, a virtual museum, for game development. You can create virtual robots. This was done by a French teacher, where you have virtual RFID chips you can put into this robot, and then he says something in French. I don't know who of you speaks French. I have no idea what this means. At least, okay, this is Bernard and Jeanette. Okay. Then you can also use it for creative coding or like creative use of technology. So this is a laser show example where you can orchestrate a set of virtual lasers in space, and you can also add background sound and your own audio to that to make it a little bit more fun. There's also a way how you can upload own 360 images. So you can make a virtual city tour through Munich, for example. This can be used in geography class. And that's basically it. So some kind of examples so you get an idea what you can do in the classroom with it. And we are in touch with our teachers and we ask them like, what do you like? Why are you using it actually? And these are the three top things what they say. First of all, they appreciate the fact that students can become makers, not only consuming, also like making something, because this is what they ask for. So they go to a virtual field trip with Google Expeditions, but then the first question is, okay, and how can I create my own things? I want to create my own stuff, and they're like, I don't know how, maybe CoSpaces. So it's a one tool for all, so it's actually just a creative platform you can use in elementary school. I have seen also usage in preschool, which is super interesting, and used up to middle school and high school level on all across the devices. And this is what we hear a lot as well, is bring the wow to the classroom. So kids, especially, I mean, imagine a 7-year-old who maps out this rocket in the space, adds this kind of event, dives into VR, looks around, and then the rocket goes up and he did it himself. This is a very interesting moment and very engaging moment for the students. So I don't know, if I would have been in first class, first grader, then I would go crazy about it. So our mission is actually, we want to create future thinkers. We want to create a tool where they can practice the future skills. There's this 21st century learning skills, you can have a look. It's all about making future problem solvers, creating future engineers, creating future developers, and of course also designers. So at the end of the day, people who can make things, who are creative and who create a lot of different kinds of things. Talking about Maker, there's also a CoSpaces Maker version, which is more targeted outside of classrooms. So we see usage in workshops, like in Fab Labs or at different kinds of maker labs and maker spaces all around the globe. More used also in a scenario with parents and with friends, building interactive stuff together and exploring it, and unicorns, of course. So what kind of design challenges are we facing when we design for CoSpaces? So I talked to my team, and this was actually a nice trigger to just reflect and take a step back and what's actually unique about what we are doing at CoSpaces. Of course, for example, we have a distributed team as well, so we have to connect through different time zones and via Skype and this kind of stuff. But some of you are probably familiar with this, so that's not so unique about us. But what is interesting, for example, that challenge number one, we have to design across all platforms. And when I say all platforms, I mean not only smartphones, tablets, and desktop devices, which maybe some of you already know how to design for. This is like the standard multi-platform. Plus you have this little thingy here, so the whole VR device sector, which is currently still a little bit messy, I would say. So challenge here is how can I design for different kinds of interactions? Like I mentioned it, mouse, keyboard, or touchpad is pretty clear. Touch and virtual buttons as well. Then you have these cardboard devices, which have like one button. And then till high-end VR devices with 2 6 degrees of freedom controllers with touchpads and 3 buttons. So this was a task we had. How can you make this guy, or how can I walk around this VR space across all devices? One solution we came up, for example, on desktop, you just use your arrow keys to move forward and the mouse to navigate. and if you click on something, then it goes up. This is quite straightforward. It's ego shooter gaming interaction, basically. On smartphones, you need a virtual button here, for example, where you press and then you move forward, and then by whether rotating the device or swiping and touching, you can make things go up and walk around. Then we have this device where you have a so-called reticle, which is basically the virtual mouse cursor in VR. So wherever you hover any kind of object in the space, you can make interactions with it on click. And if you press the button on your cardboard and nothing is hovered, you just move forward in the direction where you're looking at. And then if I press, then the rocket goes up. And if you go to VR, then you have these two nice controllers, one of them having a ray coming out of, and this kind of ray is also your virtual virtual controller, mouse controller, where you can put this thing on the rocket, you will see it, and make it go up. And we use the touch area here in order to move forward or to move backward. So that's how we translated this thing to VR. So we want to reduce the effort for the creator, because creators can be kids in elementary school, so they don't have to think about on which kind of devices does this run. So we think about it, and you just put things up and don't think about it so much. The second challenge are different kinds of screens. You know the hassle: notebooks, tablets, phones, different resolutions, different screen sizes. So we have the CoSpaces app where you can create and explore on those devices, and then you can explore what you have created on those devices with a cardboard, for example, or high-end VR, any different kinds of HMD. When we design for this creation part, basically we keep in mind that everything should be touch ready. So basically we start designing for the web, but you see already that the interfaces are all the same across all the platforms. But the button sizes and how we arrange things, we always keep in mind that this should work on an iPhone device later or on some Android device. But for example, we don't do like very specific separation for iOS or Android to ensure a CoSpaces experience across all the platforms. And the same for the dashboard. When you see all your projects you created across devices, of course, on Android and on iPhone, you have portrait mode, and you don't have so much space to show the menu bar, so we put it into the burger menu. But basically, if you have more space on web or tablets, we show it on the left. But basically, it always looks kind of the same. You always have the same experience across all devices. There are slight exceptions, of course. If you go to VR, the dashboard is like floating in space in front of you. You have your controller where you can, for example, spot any space, click on it and open it. But you see again, the basic idea is still incorporated in the VR space. So you have the menu on the left, the dashboard, tiles with the spaces in the middle, and user profile on the right. And when we design, why we are doing this is we want to keep also the effort for our front-end developer team and for the design team as low as possible. Which brings us to the next challenge: balancing aspirations and resources. So we have a team of right now around about 30 people. This is just a couple of them. And resources, especially front-end developer resources, are precious. So compared to all the ideas we have in mind, what we would like to do, we have to face reality and make it work. So one example, this is probably, as you know it, this is just a screenshot from some elements from our GUI kit. So we are using always the same kind of elements across the devices, and as we think about new concepts and new UI designs we have to implement and to design for, we always try to reuse the resources again and again and again, so we don't reinvent the wheel all the time. To push out new features and to keep the effort as low as possible for front-end. One task, for example, where you can see how we work is that we had to make it possible to define a view and starting point in VR. So when I create a space, I want others to, the creators to actually define a spot where someone starts when he's viewing your space. So we came up with an idea of a camera in space. You can select different kinds of camera options, like you can make the camera walk, or it can even fly, so it can go up, or it's just a fixed camera, so you want the person just to stand still and walk and look around. We also thought about cool things like the speed and that you can attach it to a character and then change the distance and have different kinds of camera elevations here. And you also have like a camera view where you see what the camera is seeing, like embedded into this view. You could also change the preview and this kind of things. But at the end of the day, this was the final design spec. So we said, okay, what's really, really important for people to make this task happen? You need the camera, you need to place it somewhere, and you can define what style of camera it is. You also have to define how fast you can move with the camera. Is it like fastly moving or slowly moving? This you have to find out, because traveling in the VR space can make people sick if it's too fast. So also you can put different kinds of cameras on the stage, and you can select one as like the main camera. So this was the spec, and this is how it was implemented. And from all the cool ideas we had, we still have many other features to do. So this is why we created this kind of like MVP, the minimum viable product or minimum viable feature. Challenge number 3, prototyping with the product. So the interesting fact about CoSpaces is that it is a creative platform. So when we implement new features, we prototype them first. And over the time, CoSpaces became more and more powerful. So we are also like eating our own dog food, which means we use CoSpaces ourselves to test it and to play around with it. So for example, we have the task to think about how can I explore a space with multiple people. So this makes the whole thing more social. And for example, as in CoSpaces you can build things, we set up a prototype for an avatar, which is not a human avatar, because sometimes this can just look creepy. On the other hand, it should be more abstract but still have some human touch. So we came up with this basic building, added some interactions to it just to test how it feels when multiple people are in VR. And this is like a screenshot when the whole team from CoSpaces came together and were playing a game together in space. So we are using our own tool to prototype for the tool, which is, I think, an interesting, unique challenge. Challenge number 4, design for design. So again, we are a creative platform, and compared to I would say, simple login process or like a purchasing process where you have a specific goal and you have to target this, and maybe, of course, there are some, maybe I don't have enough money, or I have enough money. What happens in this kind of case? A creative process, as you all know it, can be very messy. What we do is we make screen recordings from our own team, or we invite people. So this is a fast recording of someone using CoSpaces to build a bike. So this is 30 minutes to build a whole bike, and we just look at it and try to understand the process, because it's a non-linear process. Sometimes you build something, then think like, I want to have it different, and then you just ditch the idea and continue with something else. This is what I meant with complex non-linear processes we are facing designing for CoSpaces. So what we do is actually we take a look at some problems you can have when you design for it, and one problem we found, just as a basic example, is we have an attach feature. So you can build a simple house by attaching this roof onto the basic house building block. So what we found out that for the user, it was not clear that this is kind of like a parent-child relationship. And it was also not clear what happens when I select the roof and I want to rotate it. So user expected to select the roof and rotate it independently, but this was not working like this at all. So we spotted this problem, and so we spot problems here and there in the process, look at them specifically, and solve them step by step. So one solution we found is that we take the roof and attach it to the object like we have it, and then you see in this parent-child group that you can select each element, and you can also individually manipulate each object, although they are attached to each other. And this is what was more clear and was more matching the user expectations. So when we focus on code spaces, we also have to focus on ease of use, but still keep it interesting for teenagers as well. So for beginners like kids in elementary school, we give you basic controls like rotating, non-uniform scaling it, and this kind of stuff right away. So it still doesn't look too crowded, or when people come say like, oh, this looks like a simple, easy to use tool. But we give you more features for advanced users when you double click on objects, like you can change the texture, the color, you can run different kinds of animations, you can mask objects, you can give it names, you can say something, and so on. But this is how we keep this thing in mind, that we want to leave space for the user to grow. You can also see this when you can make things interactive. This was, by the way, an example where I used Navis 360 images to make a demo space. So you can just make it interactive through Blockly, which is good for beginners, especially also, again, elementary school level coding. Or you can use real scripting, I would say. Yeah, you can script with JavaScript, TypeScript, for example, as well. So whether you are a beginner or you're more advanced developer, you can make things interactive easily. And we support both. We give you room to get started with programming, and then you can advance on this kind of level. Challenge number 5, keeping up with your users. So we are based in Munich and also in St. Petersburg. So our core target users are in the States, like I said, in Canada, and in Asia, like in Taiwan, in Japan, in South Korea, in Indonesia and Thailand, also in New Zealand and Australia. So we need to use all our channels. Sometimes they find us, so we have we also have a Twitter account, we have a Facebook group for CodeSpaces EDU. We also run an ambassador program where we have all the teachers who really like the tool and who really say like, okay, I want to support you. How can I help you anyway? And we say, okay, just join our ambassador program where we keep you closer in a Slack channel, in a Slack group, where, for example, I go out and ask them for feedback. For example, hey, we are currently working on an update for the sharing feature. Who wants to give feedback? Or sometimes they come through Twitter and say like, hey, it would be nice to have a custom color stain in a personal palette, maybe hex codes, what do you think about it? Or through Facebook, then we, and through email as well. And then sometimes we set up Skype calls to find out more what they really want. So we get feedback all across the channels and a lot of feedback, but how do you deal with all those feedback? So first of all, we also have to keep aligned to our own ideas and visions we have. So it's nice to have all the user feedback, and we set up a spreadsheet where we incorporate all the kinds of different feedbacks across the channels, and then simply have a look like what are easy to do tasks, of course, so pick the low-hanging fruits first. And we also look at repeating patterns. So for example, a lot of people said, how can I upload my own 3D models? I would like to upload my own 3D models. So when you see this repeating a lot, then this is probably something you should focus on. But on the same hand, also we have some ideas and where we think how this can improve teachers' lives. And so sometimes you get feedback where they think there's a problem, but also suggest you a solution, which is probably not the best solution. But they just, for example, saw it on Google Drive, and this is how Google Drive is doing it, and we would also like you that it works like this. Which is also good, because they already come with a mental model of how things should work, but still take a step back, think about, is this really the best solution, or maybe there are other solutions for that. So that's actually it. I want to say thank you for listening. Controller drop. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. Super exciting. So that means you're traveling a lot to the US and to China to
yeah, we
meet
had
people?
Not so much actually. I think we could do it much more often. But yeah, we had a conference end of June in San Antonio. It's ST conference. It's the biggest EdTech conference in the States. There's like, I don't know, crazy 15,000 guests. And this was also a very interesting experience if you also see the cultural differences between teachers here in Germany and teachers in the States. I was at an event where I got high-fived by teachers and said, "You're doing such a cool tool, hey!" And I was like, what's going on here? A German teacher would never be this kind of cool and like enthusiastic about learning and finding out about new tools. What's also cool about the States is that they, in the States, they have a special job role called tech integrators, which we really are missing in Germany. They're thinking about it to have it soon, hopefully. But this is a job role where people, whether they are in the school or they're freelancing between different kinds of schools, always looking out for new apps, for new modern technology they can use in the classroom. They take it, they use it, they try it out, and then go to the teacher and say, "Hey, I found a new tool which would be interesting for chemistry class. Yeah. I tested it for you, this is how you could use it." In Germany it works like this, that a teacher, if he's really motivated, so of all the teachers, there are some motivated teachers, and from these motivated teachers, in their free time, they look out for some tools and then maybe they use it. Yeah, and this is, I think, why in America and also in Asia, they are also keen on new technology, always looking for new technologies, which makes us easier to grow there than actually we are here in Germany, but growth here is not as high as in the other states.
Okay, and so you would say one of the main reasons why this tool is not so successful yet, hopefully, in schools in Germany is because there's this role missing. Are there any other reasons why you?
Yeah, again, for example, there's also a stance towards new technology in schools. Where you, in Germany, you have long discussions about if it's even appropriate to have iPads in schools, where they ban smartphones from school usage, because this is bad. Also, all Google products are bad. And in the States, you just have Chromebook classes, Google used everywhere, connected classes, iPad classes. They are celebrating new technology. Every time there's a new cool app, they want to use it. While in Germany, development is a little bit slow. The German government, they had a fundraising where they put a lot of millions into the education system. Say, okay, you can use it for getting new iPads for your school. And then there was a huge discussion by the teacher, what's it called? Like, association, teacher association, that, oh, is this really appropriate by the government? Why iPads? We could use it for something else. Why technology? Is it really what we want, what we're looking for? And I think it's just stupid in modern times to I don't know, to go into this discussion. That's I think cultural system problems.
Okay. Yeah. Any questions from the audience?
Okay, so yeah, thank you for your very nice presentation. I really enjoyed it. I had a question regarding, so since CoSpaces is catered towards kids and younger kids who may be using these things in school, I was curious to know a little bit about your research and how you chose to design for them, and like how you prototyped, just understanding what these kids think and like designing for these guys. Because it's quite a nice design challenge to design for
Yeah.
kids.
You need to know a little bit more about our history then. So before we worked on CoSpaces, we were working on a virtual coaching platform called Coaching Spaces, targeted to psychotherapists and business coaches, where they have a 3D stage where they can map out objects. Some of you may be familiar with systemic constellations or family constellations. So you could do this in VR. And our target group was 50 plus psychotherapists. So if you're really a successful business coach, you usually are 50 plus. And they had really hard times with like new technology, so we have to make it very, very, very simple for them. Unfortunately, we didn't see the growth there, what we wanted to see there. But in the meantime, we saw kids from our team members, and for example, our CEO's daughter, she was using Coaching Space in order to build stories with it, because it was so simple that a 50-plus coach could use it, so a 10-year-old kid could also use it, but in a complete different way. So they were actually misusing it. And then we saw something interesting, so we made a little setup where we just invited all the kids from team members and gave them coaching spaces to play around with it for like 1-2 hours. And they completely were diving into this thing, doing lots of colorful, funny, sometimes weird things. And then we got this idea, okay, it looks like that it's a different kind of audience, but still they have the same requirements. They want to keep it simple and straightforward and just play around with it. Give me lots of different things in the library, give me lots of different things where I can select, also give me the opportunity to upload my own pictures, and then I will just go. This is an interesting audience. Actually, we switched from old guys to kids, but still for both it works. Yeah. But on the other hand, while you're saying elementary school, this is what we said. We also want to keep it more interesting for teenagers as well. So that's why we always keep in mind to give more sophisticated features as well. Yeah.
Did it answer?
Did it answer your question?
Yes and no. Sorry, but like
Okay.
so there's two things. It's one, designing the right thing, and the other one is designing the thing right. So what I'm talking about is, how did you know this is how the VR experience is going to be even before you developed something? Like, was there any kind of research tools or methods that you used?
No, we just simply had a hypothesis. We were building a prototype actually. So we had coaching spaces already. Then there was the Rift SDK coming out. We just connected it with some web VR, made it happen that you can dive into the space, played around with it ourselves. We liked it. Made it available for the smartphone, pushed it out, and said, okay, let's see who picks it up. And then we had some hypotheses that journalists could be interesting for like immersive journalism, putting out scenes. We also had the hypothesis of parents and kids using it, and also the hypothesis about maybe teachers in education would be nice for storytelling. And then overnight, a school signed up with 70 accounts, like a teacher and 2 classes from New Zealand. 1 week later from South Korea, and then it stacked up, and it looks like we did something right. So this was our approach actually, without like doing lots of research up in front with kids and really figuring it out. We just followed our own instincts and came up with an idea, put it out, and see what happens, and it worked.
In the back?
Yeah, sorry, I'm a bit far. What's your business model?
So our business model is that we sell licenses to schools. We sell in batches of 50 licenses, which can be used by teachers and student licenses as well. And we sell it for $75 a year. So schools usually, they pay per year, so they're comfortable with that. So they also have like purchase orders, and then they said, okay, we have, recently for example, they come and say like, we have 5 teachers, they have all their classes, we need 450 licenses, this costs, and boom, there we go, and then you have it.
So one license is 75 or
75 per 50, and then if you have 100, it's, do the math, 150. And so on, and then it stacks up.
Yeah, here in the front.
Hey, how would you describe your the advantage of this app? Because you say, okay, schools are buying it, they're really fancying it, they're motivated, they're enthusiastic about it. But
Yeah.
what's the real advantage for the kids? I mean, this is just playing. Is it just playing around and being intuitive with new technology? But I'm wondering what's the real boundary of your this app or of, because I mean okay, a 10-year-old can play around, can be really create things, but I mean if I'm an architect student, or I have been, so I would like to know how can I use it for really precise designing, or then it would be a real advantage. Like how can you develop the learning process, or is there how would you
Okay,
describe
there are,
advantage?
I would say there are actually two questions. So the one question is what is the value, what's the benefit, and how can you use it for more advanced cases where you see a sense where it makes sense for you. But for our EDU customers, you have teachers and you have students on one hand. So teachers, they follow this. There's a common idea around teachers that you have to get your kids into new technology as soon as possible, because in the future there will be lots of modern technology and they need to be prepared. That's why modern technologies, do-it-yourself things like Raspberry Pi and Arduino and this kind of movement is really growing so fast. And the teachers also say this is my responsibility. So if there's a new technology, I need my kids to get their hands on as soon as possible. So augmented reality, virtual reality is super hot right now. And it's okay, VR in the next 5 to 10 years, they say, it will be it's an emerging technology. So I have to teach my kids right now. This is the motivation from the teachers. And the kids, they're also not stupid. I mean, they play Minecraft a lot. They love Minecraft, 3D spaces, walking around, being creative, having this open sandbox where I can just be creative and do whatever I like. And this is, I think, what they also enjoy. So they have sometimes still they have some lessons where it's just like this classic thing where a teacher stands here and talks about some theory stuff. But then they switch into, as quick as possible, into the mode where the kids can be creative and do something. And whether it's about, they learned about something, for example, they were rebuilding the Battle of Waterloo in CoSpaces. So first they learn about the theory, and then it's okay, now we go to CoSpaces and you can rebuild the Battle of Waterloo. So you incorporate the knowledge the teacher told you, and then you can map it out and be creative. And this is engaging, it's fun with your classmates. Sometimes they do stupid things, but it's perfectly okay. So it's just fun being creative and doing something for them. And the second question about the more advanced tools, we are also thinking about this. So of course it would be also interesting. We have some so-called STEM classes, like engineering classes, and we already have teachers and students from higher educations. They are rebuilding machines and aircrafts with CoSpaces. And this is also interesting that we want to still keep them and make them happy with more precise tools, so we keep this in mind as well. Yeah, but it's right now it's not our like core user group, but of course we want to get there as well. Yeah.
I think there was a question in the back.
Yeah. I'm wondering for classic interactions, we have many tools how to get like a good impression, how we can learn fast with an easy way. How do you do that for VR? So because how fast do you go into code, for example, for new interactions or new features?
Okay, I can tell you this story about learning code actually. So there is a very successful website, probably you know it, code.org with Hour of Code, this kind of things. So they have lots of different kinds of activities where you can learn coding in 45 minutes. So they give you step-by-step examples. And this is also something we are currently working on. So step-by-step examples where you can learn coding. So for example, by just moving things around, you first of all understand that there's a sequence of actions executed if you execute the code. That you can have loops where things get executed again and again and again, plus if-then conditions. So if this thing happens, then this thing happens, and this kind of stuff. And this you can very easily do, and teachers doing it a lot in, like I said, they are already using it in elementary school. Or maybe I didn't get your question.
Yeah, it was more for your own prototyping process.
For our own prototyping process.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, for classic websites and so on, we have paper prototyping and so on, where you can really get feedback very fast. And I guess that's kind of harder as more dynamic your experience gets. And
first of all, of getting feedback and sharing it. So CodeSpaces, you can create a share link and send it around. This is also what we do, and this is what teachers do. So they build something, then they send us a link and say, look what I've created. Or maybe here I had some troubles. Can you please figure out why this thing is not working? Then we also help them, of course. It's also good learning for us. But it depends on which part you're designing for. So we have, I would say still, in CodeSpaces, there's a lot of classic user interface stuff to be done. And we also do it like this. Classic, for example, the dashboard. Or teacher management, or assign management, account management, where you do sketches, maybe paper prototypes, just some wireframes, just classic process, we all know it. And then you also have the 3D VR encoding process. For example, with this multiplayer, how can you figure it out with a paper prototype? It's impossible, so you have to build it. And yeah, and then we tested ourselves, and sometimes what's also good about VR and 3D interaction, that you can get inspiration from real world, from the real world. So imagine I'm like in VR, and then we had this prototype where we had this reticle. So I just took this thing on top, and I was looking around, and everywhere I see the spot, I want to click on it, and then I want to move it. So you can think about it. Okay, there's this glass, and I want to take it. So I click on it, and then it's attached to this thing, and then it moves around. So you can, for 3D interactions, you can already take inspiration from the real world and just try to model it into 3D. Yeah.
And one last question. Do we have one? Matthias?
I have one. I have two actually. Can I ask two? Yeah. First one is. First one is. Do you see any danger for you guys with like the new Google Blocks and everything that actually creates in VR? Actually, the first question that comes before that is: did you think putting this creator part into VR directly, so kids can actually build the VR environment in VR, that would maybe add even more, like a stronger impact, a wow factor on this? And yeah, the second question is like, there's already, you know, like Unity is going to have a VR editor, Google Blocks is released, you have the Google Expedition, so they might merge the two at one point. You know, that I just want to have your point of view on that.
Okay, first of all, about the idea that you can build in VR directly. By the way, I have two of my teammates here. One is Xaver and one is Stefan. Please stand up. Stefan, for example, this multiplayer prototype, and Xaver's master thesis, for example, was how can I create intuitively in VR directly? So this is also something we keep in mind, we are working on, because of course, there's also a request by teachers like, okay, I build something here, and then I have to view it in VR, and then I have to go back, and always this kind of thing. The cool thing about CodeSpace is it's real time, so if I move something around here, I can look at it, and while I move this class around, it also moves around in VR, which is already very helpful. But of course, the best thing is if you can take a block and move it and do it there. We're working on it. And fear of competition, like Google Blocks and Unity maybe as well. First of all, competition is good. If you are doing something and there's no competition, then you're probably very lucky and find a sweet spot. But I don't believe in this. Or when there's a lot of competition coming up and we see more and more competition coming, then it's a good sign for you that you're doing the right thing. And it's also good for us to learn from each other, because when we started, there was nothing like this. So we were prototyping in the beginning actually with Unity also, and looking at some 3D tools, but they're more advanced. So you have to actually think about own solutions, and while we are building this, the whole VR industry looks like it's currently learning and trying to figure out what kind of like interaction standards do you have. For example, having a reticle or having two controllers. Meanwhile, it looks like Vive started with it, and then there was Oculus coming, and now more and more new headsets coming. They have whether one or two interactions with buttons and this raycast thing. And if you want to move in the space, you just point at some spot on the floor, and then you just move there. So this looks like it's going to be like standards, but for the sake for the user and the usability, and that the user knows what kind of like standards exist, so I can rely on this and can set my expectations to this. It's good to have competition, yeah. And also, of course, you can learn from competitors, and of course, you can also try to improve yourself. But right now, there's no competitor at all if you really look on a multi-platform solution. So there's blocks from Google, but you can build in VR, and that's it. So you can build on your smartphone, desktop, mobile, tablet, thingy, all across devices, and export all across devices. And Google Box is only VR, for example. And this is our main benefit, because not many people have HTC Vive yet. They have this thing at home. Yeah.
Thank you, Thomas. I know. I just wanted to say you're here. So if there are more questions, I'm sure he's happy to answer these. And you wanted to share and also a different thing you're doing.
One last thing. I'm also co-organizer of Push Conference. How many of you know Push Conference already?
No, everyone knows it?
Not everyone knows it. Interesting. Okay, so we are doing this the 6th year in Munich already. It's a 2-day conference in Alte Kongresshalle, end of October. So we will have 600 guests. It's a 2-day conference with cool guys from Netflix, for example. We have cool guys also from the Silicon Valley talking about machine learning and design, about chatbot design, and different kinds of other trend topics. And we want to give you the opportunity to join this event with a 15% discount code. So this runs till the first week of September. You can go to pushconference.com 2017. Can have a look at the schedule, at the program. We also have workshops. We also have an interactive exhibition there, so different kinds of people exhibiting their stuff. We also have lots of companies there who present themselves there, and lots of different kinds of networking things. For example, I run on Friday evening, I run the speed networking round, which is pretty cool. So if you're looking for getting in touch with the Munich UX scene, and this is not only Munich UX guys here, there's also lots of people coming from the States and from Europe and from all over the place. That's your spot. And yeah, friends, Creative Mornings, it's the code.
You will find it also on the social media of Creative Mornings, the code. So.
And that's it. Enough,
Thank you for
enough
coming.
shameless self-advertising.
Yeah. Thank you for coming, and I hope you have a great Friday.